Before you begin work on your SEO, there are a couple of infrastructure things we need to look at. The issue of mobile sites and HTTPS. Both Google and Bing now determine whether a site is mobile friendly or not, and if it's not, then the site will be downgraded in the search results when somebody searches from a small mobile device, typically a smartphone. This does not affect searches coming from laptops and tablets, it's just smartphones. Does this matter? It certainly does, as a huge proportion of searches are now coming from smartphones, and the proportion's growing all the time. For many people, especially younger people, the smartphone's now the device of choice, but even for older people and demographics you might think of as unsophisticated, more and more searches are coming from these small devices. Check your site's logs and take a look. You could easily be seeing 20% or 30% of your traffic coming from these devices. So if your site is not mobile friendly, you're going to see a big hit in your search traffic. In fact, most internet use in North America and Western Europe comes from mobile devices these days, and a huge proportion is from smartphones. Most Americans now own a smartphone, and almost 1 in 5 access the internet almost exclusively by smartphone. If your target demographic is young in particular, a mobile-friendly site is essential. So what do you do about this? If you already have a website, of course, and it's not mobile-friendly, that's a problem you're going to have to think about. If you haven't built a site yet, then you'll definitely want to make sure it's mobile-friendly. There are essentially 3 ways to set up a site for mobile devices. The first method is the preferred method, responsive design. With this method, you provide HTML that will automatically adjust depending on the size of the device it's shown on. The web server sends the HTML page, and the device figures out how to best display it. The second method is dynamic serving, in which each web page on your site has 2 different versions, and the web server sends the most appropriate one depending on the device requesting it. So you have regular web pages and you have mobile web pages. And the last method is to have separate URLs. For each page, there's a desktop URL and a mobile URL, and the web server directs the device to the most appropriate page. So how do you deal with this? Well, if you're building a new site, you'll simply want to make sure that the development tools you're using can create responsive design sites. As an example, if you're creating a site using WordPress, and about 1 site in 4 worldwide uses WordPress sites, by the way, you would want to pick a responsive design template. By the way, Google provides a nice little tool here where you can test the site to see if it's set up properly for mobile devices. Now, what about this HTTPS thing? Well, HTTPS means HTTP secure, or perhaps HTTP over SSL, secure sockets layer, the web's original encryption system. When you transfer personal data over the web, such as credit card information while checking out at an online store, HTTP is used to encrypt, to scramble the data. So even if the transmission is intercepted, it can't be read. Google is on a mission to get all data transmissions on the web converted to HTTPS. In fact, if you load Google, you'll see that it automatically turns on HTTPS. You can see the S up here in the location bar, and the lock icon indicating that the transmission is encrypted. Do a search, and the keywords you send to Google are encrypted, and the results Google sends back to you are encrypted as well. Google wants you to use HTTPS on your site too, throughout the site, and it's willing to reward you with a slight boost to your search results. In other words, Google will provide a little extra weight to web pages that are being delivered by HTTPS. This probably isn't a big boost though, and may not make much difference. But if you're out for all the help you can get, you can add HTTPS to your site fairly cheaply. Search for SSL certificates. Actually, HTTPS is no longer SSL, it's really TLS. But SSL, the name of the original system, is better known to people, and even companies selling these certificates advertise them as SSL certificates rather than TLS certificates. Anyway, you'll find that prices range greatly. All you need is the cheapest certificate, which you can probably get for around $50 a year, perhaps as low as $5 a year. There's absolutely no reason for most people to be spending hundreds of dollars a year for one of these things.